today we're going to be talking about somehow specific topic, but it's not really specific to Kubernetes. It just I use Kubernetes just because I like to use Kubernetes, and it's my platform of choice to deploy my applications, and I like presentations around this, and it's also a pretty good tool to have in your tool belt. But all the things in terms of technologies and in terms of like how you run the services and how you can integrate this with things like Kong, also applicable to non-Kubernetes environments. So the Kong can be run anywhere. And I will be talking a little bit about specifics, why the Kong and Kong Ingress Controller specifically exist, and how we can integrate this with our application. So in introduction, I will talk a little bit about the Kubernetes and applications, and after that, I'll talk a little bit about Kong, and after that, I will show you some demos. So hopefully, we'll have enough time to answer the questions. So in this presentation, let me see if my clicker not working. So we're going to be using keyboard. So I work as developer advocate with Kong, and as developer advocate, I talk to developers. I really like to see how our tools can help them to solve the problems and make them or make you productive with all these tools. You can find me in Twitter. I'm pretty, you can ask me all questions in Twitter, and my Twitter is conveniently placed in the header of this presentation, so you can always find me and follow me. I'm a very interesting person. So what we're going to be covering today, since I would like to talk a little bit about Kubernetes, I will talk why and how the idea of Ingress appeared in Kubernetes world, and how it is evolved, and how this will involve, how this evolved. I think that's called gateway. I'm not gonna talk about this much, but the gateway is the next version of Kubernetes Ingress object. And a lot of things that people were doing with Ingress in the past influenced the way how we're going to be doing this in the future using Kong Ingress, just any type of Ingress. We'll talk about Ingress. We'll talk some advanced features and how we can extend those, and obviously you will see some demos here. So when we talk about Kubernetes native apps, our applications would be containerized and deployed as pods in Kubernetes environment. And Kubernetes will be responsible for distribution of these the replicas of your applications across multiple nodes. So in this particular example, I have a cluster of 3 nodes, like 3 physical nodes that running some of the physical old VMs that run some of the processes that allows Kubernetes to use them as a place where you can deploy your workloads, and to get access to those services from outside world. Traditionally, we can deploy a service, and the service will have a type load balancer, and this is a little bit ambiguous, I would say, because it depends on implementation, depends on where you're running this. Because in some cases, if you're running this in cloud environment, if you're running this in managed environment, the cloud provider will provide you something. So it will actually create a load balancer that your application will be able to hit. So your traffic will be routed to a particular service. Once you deploy multiple applications, you might need to have a different load balancers to those services. You'll have a different service to access to analytics, different service access to inventory, different service access to billing service. With the concept of kind of consolidation of the access and the consolidation of the management, the Kubernetes folks come up with this idea of Ingress. And Ingress, it's the Kubernetes native object that allows to use kind of like a single point of configuring access to services. And the couple things that you need to know about Kubernetes Ingress, it's a vendor neutral spec. So in this case, there's no vendor specific things here. You can add this, and we will talk about this how we can do that. And but essentially, it is the standard Ingress object, and there's a standard schema, what you can do, what kind of host, what kind of a path available for HTTP, what kind of path available for HTTPS. So in this case, you can see if you hit your proxy with /bills, it will route calls um, to the particular whatever service is there. Like in this case, it's bills. So it will use Kubernetes node discovery, and will find this bills service and provide the routing. So essentially, the idea of these proxies came in from the long time known thing called load balancer. Essentially, all modern technology is doing is reinventing things that many people already knew for many years. And load balancer provides many useful functionalities for your application, starting from the simple things like it will what's the word I'm looking for? So it sits in front of your application. It provides ability to route the traffic from one place, like from your outside world to inside world. And if the services, like upstream services, will have some issues, like service will down, it will try to route to healthy node. So that's what the purpose of load balancer was for a very long time. Now, with the load balancer, usually provides some of the features that allows you to not implement those features as part of your applications. Things with like rate limiting and the throttling of the request, and maybe even do some like a traffic shaping, for example, providing like a ability to encrypt this traffic without your application doing this explicitly, and so far and so on. Now, that's all good and all is nice, but in this case, it cannot be vendor neutral, and it cannot be something that you will rely on your cloud provider. So this because this is like two specific things, and so what is essentially many people end up doing, there's like different vendors and different projects that allows to do the proxy of traffic. They come up with this that will be listening what happens with this ingress object and translate this to the configuration that would be native for certain components. Also, some of the day two responsibilities. It's like very easy to get into the situation where, okay, so you have a service where you should put certain pieces of functionality. You should put this inside of your service. You need to like put the implementation, bring all the libraries, and make the big service. Or in this case, we'll have a situation with distributed monolith. This monolith will have everything, and even though it runs in Kubernetes, and maybe there is about multiple replicas of the service and so far and so on. But what to do with situation, if you don't want to implement this? The idea of microservices is to focus on pieces of functionality that related only to business tasks, to tasks that your business would be interested to implement. And with the load balancer, or more fancy term is the API gateway, you don't have to implement this yourself. So in this case, this proxy that will be implementing functionalities that this Ingress specification requires can be anything. So we implemented this as our own Ingress controller, meaning that there's some of the pieces of software that will be sitting inside Kubernetes cluster, and we will be listening all the events and happening into Ingress, and after that doing something with this. And I will show you in a second how it looks like. But this piece of functionality will be built into this API gateway um, product. The product will allows you to configure multiple things declaratively through the concepts that are available in Kubernetes. If you're not familiar with this concept, you can think about this, that Kubernetes server or Kubernetes cluster is essentially a API server that talks with some entities. And when you, as a developer or as a system administrator or someone who wants to do something with those resources, you just need to declare those resources, and someone will be responsible for making things happen. Think about this, how you would work in an infrastructure system, and you submit in a ticket that you need to have HTTP server deployed, and after that you don't really care. Some operations people will come and do the thing. So idea of Kubernetes would be the same. You define this resource that defines your intent, what you want to have, and after that the underlying implementation will make it happen. Apart from the standard resources that Kubernetes has, like including deployments, including pods, different the networking policies, different disk policies, and things like that, there's ability to extend this API. It provide kind of domain-specific language for particular system. In our case, we implemented few custom resources that allows us to declaratively configure those. One of the things that we have is a Kong plugin that allows us to do something with particular service or particular ingress. There's also cluster plugin that allows to apply some of the configurations to Kong and do something with Kong itself. There's a custom resource that allows to configure some of the things that your normal Kubernetes doesn't support. We have some external features called like TCP ingress, for example. If you're running service that expose the HTTP or HTTPS or to gRPC or HTTP2, but through the TCP or UDP. So this stuff also available as a custom resource. And after that, there would be custom controller that will be listening these resources. And after that, these resources will make it happen. So those resources will work. So let's talk about gRPC. So I will get back to this slide after I will talk about this. But gRPC in Kong Ingress is like a first class citizen there. So your services, if you want to expose those services to outside world that use gRPC, you will be able to do this natively. So I think this is a good time to talk about this, how it works. And meanwhile, like when I'm switching the screens to my application demo, are there any questions we have in a chat, or maybe you want to unmute yourself and ask some of the questions? If not, I will continue with my presentation. So today we're going to be talking about like very simple service. I primarily came from Java world. Don't hate me for that. Java is awesome, and for over 30 years of existence, Java is still going very strong, influenced by some of the modern technologies. And Java actually has like pretty good support for gRPC. There's a plenty of like standard tools that comes from the gRPC project, but also there are community tools available. For example, allows to integrate gRPC with frameworks like a Spring framework. Spring framework, it is a very popular set of tools, Spring framework and Spring Boot specifically, a set of tools for building cloud native application. It supports all the things that people were talking when people talking about like a 12-factor applications. Service uses so-called Spring Boot starter, meaning that for me as a developer, I don't need to go through the verbose process of configuring things. I just need to define the service, and after that, I need to provide implementation. So, yay! Majority of folks here are Java developers. Exciting. That's pretty good. So feels like home. So in this particular case, I'm specifying the Java package. There's like a few options that available for Java package. And I have two services. One service just gets the movie quote. Today we're going to be talking about the Dune. It's a movie just released in the US just last week. I've seen this and it's awesome. I was waiting this for a very long time. Huge fan of the Frank Herbert's book. I think it's one of the most influential sci-fi creation or sci-fi series. I'm talking about like Frank Herbert's stuff. I haven't read his son books, but huge fan of the overall the universe of Dune. And my quote service will provide the Dune quotes as a result of the call of gRPC. So this one doesn't have any parameters, just like empty call, and it will return some of the quote that will include some of the quote here. And another example, it uses the gRPC server-side streaming. So in this case, when I will call this, it will return stream of messages. The very simple stream will have only 10 elements. And when I will go and talk about actual implementation, the actual implementation of the service looks something like this. For like I said, the tools that come with the Spring Boot that extend this like quote service implementation base and provide my implementation. In this case, it's a quote and quote stream. And I'm using this library called Faker. I love this library. It has a ability to generate some of the nonsense data for your applications. If you run your application and you need to have some sort of like data that look like a real one, I highly recommend you to look at the Faker library. It's really awesome. And that's pretty much it. So I will be using this to call those two services. Since Spring Boot allows me not only build the services, but also provide some of the things to, for example, build image. Spring Boot can create Docker image, and those processes are based on another CNCF project called build packs. And for my application, where I will be deploying this application, I just need to deploy only this image. Actually, you can even use this demo application. This demo application is available in GitHub. If you go to GitHub, Kong, and there's demo scene, there is a project that includes all these things, and the project called quote service with the all instructions how you can build this and how you can deploy this and how you can play around with this. There's some of the things that depend on my my domain name, for example. In this case, like it uses my domain name, but like you can change that will use your domain name. Another thing here is that I want to use a gRPCS service. So everything should be, secured. And I want to expose this also to outside world through gRPCS. So to hit this service, they will be actually you will be able to do this as well. If you because right now the service is available through the uh, domain name I will show you in a second. So in this case, I need to provide some of the certificates. Those certificates self-signed, so nothing exciting here. I generate those certificates, and after that, I deploy this. So if I will look into my my application is deployed here, and let me see, show me your services. Once I deploy this application as a pod, I do have this service that allows to hit this particular service. My gRPC endpoint available through port 9001, and this something that we will be using to access this through outside world. Let's actually see if we can actually do this. gRPC. There's a tool called gRPC Curl that allows me to just like try to hit the service. And this service is available right now through the public. This is like public domain name. You can actually run this command and you can see the result yourself. I'm calling this service quote service get quote that will return me some of the random quote from Dune. So if I'll hit this, probably this is the quote from Dr. Kind's Liet. He was the ecologist and of Emperor ecologist and undercover leader of the Fremen. Let's try to do one more time. That's how my service available. So let's take a look how I make it happen. How I brought this service from Kubernetes cluster to outside world. So, and to do so, I use this ingress. So let's me close this annotation for a second. I will show you this in a few seconds. So one of the things that with the standard ingress I will be able to do is expose this service, and I expose the service through this like host name that I provide, and the path would be available through root, and that's my service. Now, the next thing is that where the actual magic happens. So how this thing actually going out. So the couple things we need to do in our application, and customization comes from annotations, and annotations actually not very if Ingress doesn't know what to do with those annotations, those would be ignored. So technically, every annotation will not break anything. So if you're using different Ingress controller and you don't care about Kong annotations, this simply won't work, and nothing will happen. So it's still kind of vendor neutral. But for things like Kong, this specific annotation is also very important. So this is where you actually telling Kubernetes that this particular ingress needs to be served by particular ingress controller. And when the Kong starts, it's actually registered, for listening these particular ingresses for particular ingress class. Another thing it says, we'll be talking to outside world not through standard HTTP or HTTPS protocol, but through gRPC and gRPCS protocols. So every time when we'll try to hit this with, for example, if I just do say something like this, and oops, my trackpad stuck. Okay, it's a -K. We ignore this. We will, oops, too much. So if I will do something like this, and this is the response that I get from, let's do this one. Let's do with, so we'll see the headers. So the header actually, this response, like this 400 bed request, actually coming from Kong Ingress. You can see with these headers that is something that Kong already serving. Now, so in this case, this ingress would not understand the regular TCP. It will understand gRPC and HTTP too. Another thing is that I want to provide ability to deal with gRPCS, and I want to have something better than self-signed certificate. So that's why I'm using Let's Encrypt to get me real certificate for my application. So in this particular case, I integrate, my ingress is integrated with cert manager that deployed in my Kubernetes cluster that will be responsible for provisioning a HTTPS certificate for this host name. So grpc Kong proxy.me, that's will have like a real HTTP certificate. And another thing that I use here, it's not the point of today's conversation, but sometimes it's nice so when my service will be deployed, there will be some external IP address, and I want to register this external IP address with my DNS name, so I can call this service by name, because external IP address of the service will be always changing, and it will be also depending on the node, but it's just like small thing that I use with the external DNS service. And that's pretty much it. So rest of the job, the Kong will do. Now, for this service, we also need to do one small modification. this service also needs to tell Kong that this service talks to gRPC as protocol. And how we doing this? Again, through the configuring my gRPC security enabled, and my service will be running with a gRPC as protocol. Now, if I will just do gRPC curl, try to run, that's my streaming response. So it returns 10 quotes for the streaming, but this stream also can be the never ended stream, so it always will work. And that's how you do it. So in this case, my application now is exposed to outside world without any REST nonsense, and all the services are available, and the communication has happened through secure channel. So it's secured with the HTTPS. But implementing those annotations, simply implementing annotations like this one, and enabling TLS through these auto provision certificate, we make the service available through the things. Now let's take a look on some of the plugins that we might apply here. So I was looking to the some of the set of plugins that are available. One of the common use case that I usually like to show people is rate limiting. But unfortunately, this plugin only available in open source version. For HTTP, for gRPC, this plugin is not available as a free version. But I wanted to show you only free versions today. And this is where I'm coming into these two things. So Kong actually implementing some of the cool pieces of functionalities that runs on top of Kong, and that don't require you to program anything or bring some extra software. This is the beauty of API gateway as a tool, that things that you don't want to implement or you can't implement, they will be available as a part of infrastructure. So we do have two plugins that many people find very useful. So essentially, it's the gRPC gateway. It is a very neat tool, and for very niche use case. So in case you need to expose your gRPC service through REST, you can do that using this plugin. So it allows, it's very similar to what is available in gRPC gateway product. Essentially, server that consumes your gRPC or proto file, and after that expose this through the as a REST endpoint, and that's what available in um, plugin. And this plugin is free, so you can use this with yeah, it's free. You can use this with any you know with any use case. So how you will enable this in your Kubernetes cluster? So in this config, you just need to create new object called Kong plugin. So this Kong plugin will have this is the instance of the plugin, that the class of the plugin that will create instance of the plugin. We need to provide access to the protofile, where the protofile will be available, and we need to provide a ingress configuration for this, and you will be able to hit your service through this. Again, it's a similar image that gRPC Gateway has as a project. I think this is where you need to specify the location as part of like a config map or something like that. Another plugin that is also available for gRPC users is when you want to have expose the services through gRPC web protocol. So it's a part of the standard specification, gRPC web, and you will be able to hit your services through things like a JavaScript, like from your front end and things like that. So it's kind of like a downgrade of HTTP2 protocol to run on top of regular protocol. So those plugins available to you to play around with. Now, like I said, the Ingress works out of the box. The only thing that you need to do here is just provide this annotation. So you need to tell that this service will be exposed, or this ingress will be exposed through gRPC, and your service needs to tell that we're going to talk into to the service through gRPC. Yeah, so that's you saw the demo. That's all for the presentation. So will open the floor for questions, and I would love to have some of the good questions about this. If you would like to learn more about Kong and things what we do here, definitely check out our YouTube channel, and we do, like, there's new video almost every day, or at least twice a week, definitely. I also running some of the I need to do it like more regularly. And the Kong Builders is our live stream show that I try to do every Wednesday, and this Wednesday is actually will happen. So I will be talking about some of the new features that comes into Kong Ingress Controller, specifically EDP Ingress and other things. So, and the community where we can ask, you can ask any questions, and you can, like I said, you can always reach out to me in Twitter and ask any questions there. And with this, my name is Viktor Gamov, and as always, have a nice day.